Hey guys, tonight we're taking you on a journey through South Africa, but not the safari brochure version with smiling lions and dramatic sunsets. No, you're about to experience the other South Africa, the one that exists in whispers and warning glances, where colonial ghosts pace castle battlements, and something small and hairy scratches beneath raised beds. You'll walk roads where hitchhikers vanish mid-ride, stand before sacred lakes, guarded by serpents older than memory, and feel the breath of creatures that shouldn't exist on the back of your neck. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your favorite urban legend, South African or otherwise. I'm curious what keeps you up at night. Now then, let's begin. You're standing at the edge of Cape Town, where the Atlantic Ocean crashes against rocks that have witnessed centuries of ships, storms, and broken promises. The salt air stings your nostrils, and somewhere in the distance, you hear the low moan of a foghorn that might not be a foghorn at all. Your journey starts here, at the Castle of Good Hope. And if you're smart, which, let's be honest, you wouldn't be here if you were, you'd turn around right now. But you don't turn around. You never do. The castle looms before you, its star-shaped pentagonal walls built from 1660s to 1679 by the Dutch East India Company. It's South Africa's oldest surviving colonial building, and honestly, it looks like it's been collecting ghosts the way your grandmother collects porcelain figurines, obsessively and without any intention of stopping. You push open the heavy wooden door, and it groans like something in pain. The sound echoes through stone corridors that have witnessed torture, execution, and suffering so profound it seeped into the very mortar. Inside, the air feels wrong. Not cold exactly, but dense, as if you're breathing in centuries of trapped breath. Your footsteps echo too loudly on the flagstones, and then you notice something odd. There's a second set of footsteps, just slightly out of sync with yours. You stop. The footsteps continue for another 2 beats, before falling silent. That's when you see her. The lady in gray materializes at the far end of the corridor, her Victorian dress rustling despite the complete absence of wind. She's not quite solid, not quite transparent, more like she exists at a frequency just adjacent to reality. Her hands cover her face, and she's running from something or toward something, caught in an eternal loop of grief. You'd ask if she's okay, but A, she's a ghost, and B, you suddenly remember you value your sanity. She glides past you, and the temperature drops so fast, your breath comes out in a visible plume. The smell hits you next. Damp stone, old suffering, and something floral and rotten all at once. Then she's gone, vanished as if she never existed, though your pounding heart suggests otherwise. You stumble into another section of the castle, trying to convince yourself that was just your imaginati and having a really vivid moment. But then you feel them, eyes, watching, judging. You turn, and there, in the shadows, near what was once the execution ground, stands a man in 18th century clothing. His face is gaunt, his eyes sunken but keen, fixed on you with the intensity of someone who takes their job very seriously. This is Governor Pieter van Nout, or what's left of him. In 1729, he ordered 7 soldiers executed, and one of those condemned men cursed him with his dying breath, promising Van Nout would never leave these walls. Van Nout died the very next day. Take that, karma, and he's been the castle's most dedicated employee ever since, watching visitors with eternal vigil ants. You get the distinct impression he's filling out a report card in his mind, and you're not scoring well. A sound makes you jump. A bell, clear and insistent, ringing from somewhere above. That's impossible, though. You remember reading that the bell tower was sealed centuries ago, blocked off, the bell itself silenced. Yet here it is, tolling like it's announcing something important, like maybe your poor life choices that led you to ghost hunting at midnight. You decide it's time to leave and you're heading toward the exit when you see it. A dog. Massive. Black. Eyes reflecting red in the dim light. The black dog of doom appears before tragedies, according to local legend, prowling the battlements and corridors. It's staring at you now, not moving, just staring. Its presence fills you with a dread so visceral you can taste it, metallic and sharp. Then it turns and pads silently into darkness, and you're left wondering what tragedy it's predicting. Probably yours, if you don't get out of here. You burst from the castle into Cape Town's night air, gasping like you've been underwater. The city sprawls around you, lights twinkling innocently, but you know better now. You know what hides in old stones and shadows. Your hands are shaking. Could be adrenaline. Could be the fact that you just had a supernatural encounter. Could be that third coffee you shouldn't have had. You need to clear your head, get some perspective. And there's only one place in Cape Town for that. Table Mountain. Specifically Devil's Peak. You make your way to the trail as dawn breaks, figuring ghosts are less of a problem in daylight. Spoiler. You're wrong, but we'll get to that. The climb is steep, your calves burning as you trudge up, ward through fynbos and rock. The higher you go, the more the city falls away below, becoming a toy model of itself. Up here, the air is thinner, cleaner, and you can finally breathe properly again. You find a flat rock and sit, catching your breath and wondering if maybe you're developing a reputation as that paranoid tourist who runs screaming from historical sites. Then you smell it. Tobacco. Rich, pungent pipe tobacco. The old-fashioned kind that probably causes 17 different types of cancer, but there's no one around. You're alone on this outcrop. Just you and the wind, and a man appears beside you, not walking up, not materializing from mist. He's just suddenly there, sitting on a rock you could swear was empty a second ago. He's dressed in old-fashioned clothes, a long pipe in his mouth, and he's puffing away contentedly, creating clouds of smoke that seem far too substantial for the windy conditions. Fine day for it, he says, not looking at you. You manage something between a squeak and a yeah. Care for a contest? He finally turns to you, and his eyes are strange, too bright, almost amused. See who can smoke the longest? Now you don't smoke, but before you can politely decline this bizarre offer, he gestures broadly, and you realize the smoke isn't just coming from his pipe. It's everywhere, rolling down the mountain in great white billows, cascading over Table Mountain like a tablecloth being drawn over a dining table. The temperature drops. The smoke thickens, and you catch a glimpse, just for a second, of something red and serpentine flicking behind your companion. A tail. John Van Hunks has been smoking with the devil on this peak since the 18th century, and apparently they're still at it. The tablecloth phenomenon, that gorgeous cloud formation tourists love to photograph, yeah, it's two supernatural beings having an eternal puffing contest. You mumble some excuse about having somewhere to be, anywhere but here, and you practically run down the mountain. Behind you, You hear laughter deep and echoing, and you're not sure if it's Van Hunk's or his opponent. You've decided mountains are out, castles are out. You're rapidly running out of safe spaces in Cape Town, which is when you have the brilliant idea to head to the coast. The ocean is nice, right? Calming, therapeutic. Wrong again. You drive south, past Simonstown and its colony of adorable penguins, who are probably also haunted, knowing your luck, all the way to Cape Point. This is where the Atlantic and Indian Oceans meet, where the Cape of Good Hope has earned its reputation as one of the most dangerous maritime passages in the world. The wind here is fierce, carrying the smell of salt and kelp and something older, something that speaks of depth and darkness and things that live where light doesn't reach. You're standing on the rocks, watching waves explode against the shore with hypnotic violence when the mist rolls in. This isn't normal mist. It's too fast, too deliberate, and it glows faintly with a phosphorescent light that makes your skin crawl. The temperature plummets, the wind dies. Everything goes eerily still. That's when you see the ship. The Flying Dutchman emerges from the mist like a fever dream, its spectral form glowing with an eerie red light. The sails billow despite there being no wind, and you can make out figures on deck, or at least the suggestions of figures' shapes that might have been human once. The rigging creaks, an impossible sound carrying clearly across the water. You know the story. Captain Hendrik van der Decken swore he'd round the Cape, even if it took until doomsday, and God took him at his word. Now he sails forever, his crew long dead, but unable to rest, trapped in an eternal voyage going nowhere. The ship turns, and for one horrible moment you think it's changing course toward you. Seeing the Flying Dutchman is an omen of doom. Everyone knows that. Sailors who hail the ship might receive messages to deliver to shore. But those who try soon meet a terrible fate. You're not a sailor, but you're also not taking any chances. You back away slowly, not taking your eyes off the ghostly vessel. And it's only when you stumble over a rock that you turn and run. Behind you, you hear something that might be a crew singing a shanty, or might be the wind, or might be the sound of doomed souls calling out to anyone who'll listen. You don't stop running until you're back in your car, doors locked, engine running, heat, cheese blasting to combat the chill that's settled into your bones. Your hands are cramping on the steering wheel as you drive inland, away from the coast and its phantom ships, up into the Karoo. You need civilization, you need other people, you need to be somewhere that isn't drenched in centuries of supernatural activity. So naturally, you end up in Matjesfontein. This Victorian village is a time capsule, perfectly preserved from the 1899 era when it served as a convalescent home during the Anglo-Boer War. The Lord Milner Hotel stands before you like something from a photograph, all gingerbread trim and historical charm. It's picturesque. It's beautiful. It's absolutely, definitely, 100% haunted. You book a room. Apparently common sense died somewhere back at the castle, and the receptionist gives you a key with a knowing smile. "That's Kate's card room," she says. And before you can ask who Kate is, she's turned away to answer a phone that isn't ringing. Your room is lovely. All Victorian furniture and old world charm. It's also freezing despite the heater working perfectly. You're unpacking when you hear it. The soft shuffle of cards. Not the sharp snap of someone shuffling properly, but the gentle sliding sound of cards being dealt, placed one by one on a table. You follow the sound to a small table by the window where, impossibly, you see the cards moving, arranging themselves, dealing themselves for a game of beggar my neighbor. Kate was 19 years old when she served as a Boer nurse here, caring for wounded British soldiers during the war. She played cards with them to lift their spirits, to give them something to focus on besides their pain. Many of those soldiers died in their beds here, but Kate never left. She still tends to the hotel, still plays her card games, still appears in the turret windows, staring down at the village she considers hers. A door slams somewhere down the hall, even though you're pretty sure this floor is empty. Footsteps creak on floorboards. The distinctive rhythm of someone in a heavy Victorian dress. Piano music drifts up from downstairs. Someone playing a jaunty tune that would be cheerful if you couldn't see through the window that the piano room is dark and unoccupied. Children laugh in the hallway, a sound of pure joy that makes your blood run cold because you know there are no children staying here tonight. You spend the night sitting in a chair, lights on, watching the cards occasionally shuffle themselves on the table. Kate doesn't mean any harm, you tell yourself. She's just still here, still caring, still playing games to pass eternity. It's almost sad, really. Almost. When dawn breaks, you're out of there faster than you can say paranormal activity, and you're driving north through the Karoo on the R62. The landscape is stark and beautiful in that desolate way. Scrubland stretching to distant mountains, the sky impossibly vast. You pass through Uniondale around noon, barely giving it a thought beyond noting it's a small town like dozens of others out here. That's your second mistake of the day. Your first was not going directly to the airport and flying home. You're driving the lonely stretch between Uniondale and Willowmore that evening when you see her. A young woman standing by the roadside, dark hair lifting in the wind, thumb raised in the universal gesture of hitchhiking. She looks real, solid, just a person needing help, and you're not a monster, so you pull over. "Thanks so much," she says, climbing into the back seat. Her voice is soft, pleasant, just heading up the road a bit. You nod, pull back onto the highway and make small talk. The weather, the town, where she's headed. She answers politely but vaguely, and you notice in the rear-view mirror that her eyes are profoundly sad, like she's carrying a grief too heavy for her young frame. The smell of apple blossoms fills the car, sweet and overwhelming. And that's odd because it's not the right season and you didn't see any flowers. "This is fine," she says suddenly, though you're in the middle of nowhere. You start to pull over, and that's when you glance in the rear-view mirror again. The back seat is empty. You slam on the brakes, twist around to look properly. Nothing. No one. The door never opened. You'd have heard it, felt the rush of air. But the smell of apple blossoms lingers, and the seat looks slightly depressed, as if someone was just sitting there. Your hands are shaking again. It's becoming a theme. And you remember the legend. Maria Charlotte Roux died in a car crash on Easter Sunday, 1968, when her fiancé lost control of their vehicle on this very road. Ever since, she's been trying to get somewhere, hitching rides from strangers, always vanishing before she arrives. You drive the rest of the night without stopping, and when you see another figure by the road, this time a woman in white near the N2 highway outside Chatsworth, you keep driving. That's Highway Sheila, gang raped and murdered on this stretch of road, now appearing to motorists as a pale, glowing figure. She's seeking rides or seeking revenge. The stories aren't clear on which, but you're not stopping to find out. By the time you reach the Eastern Cape, you're exhausted, paranoid, and seriously reconsidering your life choices. You check into a small guest house in a village whose name you don't catch, and the owner, a friendly older woman, shows you to your room. It's clean, simple, the bed raised on bricks stacked too high. Why are the beds on bricks? You ask, because apparently you haven't learned to stop asking quests. Chance. She looks at you like you've just asked why water is wet. The Tokoloshi, she says simply. Can't reach you if you're high enough. Oh, great. Perfect. Wonderful. The Tokoloshi, she explains, though you're frantically gesturing that you don't need to know, is a small, hairy, dwarf-like creature summoned by witches to harm enemies. It can turn invisible, shape-shift, and attacks people at night. It causes nightmares, sleep paralysis, scratches, illness, and worse. Raising your bed on bricks is the most common protection, because the creature is small and can't climb well. But you're safe, she assures you, patting your arm. That bed's been blessed, and I burn Impefo every night. You thank her and definitely don't spend the entire night wide awake, listening for scratching sounds under the bed, except you do. And around 3 a.m., you hear it. A soft scraping, like nails on concrete, circling the brick stilts of your bed. You're paralyzed, not by any supernatural force, but by pure terror, staring at the ceiling and praying to deities you don't even believe in. The smell hits you next. Something unwashed, something wrong, something that lives in dark spaces and emerges at night. You feel the weight on your chest, pressing down, making it hard to breathe. Your limbs won't obey you. Something is here, in the room, and you can sense it, even though you can't turn your head to look. Then you hear it breathe. A guttural, inhuman sound right next to your ear. The paralysis breaks with dawn, and you discover small handprints on the window. Too small to be human, the fingers too long. You're out of that guest house before breakfast, mumbling excuses about an emergency, and the owner just nods, knowingly. Ah, she says, it visited you. You must have an enemy somewhere. This is not comforting information. You drive with the windows down, the morning sun warming your face, trying to convince yourself it was sleep paralysis, a nightmare, anything rational. You end up at the wild coast, at a place the locals call Izikaleni, place of thunder, though tourists know it as the hole in the wall. It's a massive cliff with a perfect circular opening through its center, and waves crash through it with a thunderous boom that you feel in your ribcage. An elderly Xhosa man sitting nearby tells you the story. A young maiden fell in love with a sea person, a being with flippered hands and feet and hair like ocean waves. When her father forbade the Relatianship, the sea people gathered and struck the cliff face with a giant fish until they broke through the rock. The maiden leapt into her lover's arms as a wave crashed through, and they vanished into the ocean together. The sea people still call for brides, he says, his eyes twinkling. You can hear them in the waves. You listen. The boom of water through stone, the hissing spray, the wind singing through the opening. And yes, underneath it all, something that might be voices, might be singing, might be calling. The rainbow mist in the air creates tiny sparkles, almost magical, and you feel a pull toward the water, like invisible hands reaching for you, inviting you to step closer, closer, just a bit closer. I wouldn't, the old man says mildly, unless you want to be a sea person yourself. You step back quickly, and he chuckles. The drive north takes you through increasingly rural areas, past fields and small towns, and you stop at a school to use their bathroom facilities. It's evening now, the building mostly empty, just a few teachers working late. The bathroom is stark, clean, fluorescent lights humming. You're washing your hands when you notice the graffiti on the stall door behind you, reflected in the mirror. Pinky Pinky was here? Oh no. Pinky Pinky is an urban legend that swept through South African schools in the 1990s, causing mass hysteria. It's described as half man, half woman with pinkish skin and shocking pink hair. It lurks in school bathrooms, targeting young girls, especially those wearing pink. It appears if you say its name 3 times or light a match in the mirror. You haven't done either of those things, but you're in a school bathroom at twilight, and the lights are flickering, and you can smell something sweet, like bubble gum. A toilet flushes on its own in the stall behind you. The stall door swings slowly open, even though there's no breeze. In the mirror, you see something pink, reflected for just a second. A flash of color where there should be none. You're not proud of the sound you make, but it's effective at getting you moving. You run from that bathroom like it's on fire, past a startled teacher, out into the parking lot where your car is blessedly normal and ghost-free. You sit there breathing hard and decide you're done with buildings. No more castles, hotels, schools, or guest houses. From now on, you're staying in wide open spaces where you can see things coming. This, predictably, also turns out to be a terrible plan. You drive through the night, crossing into KwaZulu-Natal, and by morning you find yourself near Howick Falls. The falls are spectacular, a 95-meter drop of water that roars like a living thing, sending up mist so thick you can barely see through it. The pool at the base churns and froths, and the Zulu people consider this place sacred. They consider it sacred because something lives here. The Inkanyamba is a giant serpent with a horse-like head as wide as a tree trunk, length unknown. It controls the weather, particularly storms and floods. During heavy rainfall, it rises from its lair, and some people have seen its massive head emerging from the churning water. The creature is connected to the creator god in Zulu mythology, serving as a bridge between earthly and spiritual realms. When it's angry or disturbed, it summons torrential rains and lightning. The signs around the falls are very clear: do not swim, do not approach the water, show respect. You're keeping a healthy distance, watching the water cascade down when the sky darkens. This isn't a gradual change. One moment it's a clear morning, the next, storm clouds boil overhead like they've been summoned. The wind picks up, whipping spray into your face. Lightning cracks, so close the thunder is instantaneous, and in that flash of illumination, you see something in the pool below. A shape, massive, moving beneath the surface. The water bulges upward, and for one impossible moment you see scales, huge, gleaming, reflecting the lightning. The suggestion of a head, equine but wrong, too large, too ancient. The earth trembles from the fall's power, and you feel like the water itself is watching you, evaluating you, deciding if you've shown proper respect. Another lightning strike, and you swear you see an eye, enormous, reptilian, intelligent, looking directly at you. You back away slowly, not turning your back on the falls, and you don't stop backing away till you're in your car with the engine running. As you drive away, the rain hits, sudden and torrential, as if someone turned on a tap in the sky. The Inkanyamba is angry, and you're very grateful you're no longer standing by its home. The N2 highway carries you north toward Durban, and you're so focused on the road and the rain that you almost miss her. Almost. But the figure is hard to miss when she's standing directly in your head. Light beams, pale skin seeming to glow, wearing what might be white clothing or might be a blood-stained dress. It's hard to tell in the rain. Highway Sheila. You swerve around her, heart hammering, and in your rear-view mirror she's turning, watching your tail lights disappear. The story is brutal. She was stranded when her car broke down, and instead of helping, the men who stopped brutally gang-raped and murdered her. Now she haunts this stretch of highway, appearing to motorists, sometimes vanishing from vehicles after being picked up, always leaving behind an overwhelming sense of dread. You drive faster, the rain pounding your windshield, and you don't slow down until you reach the brightly lit outskirts of Durban. Cities are safer, you think. More people means fewer ghosts, right? You've really learned nothing from this journey. You bypass Durban and head for Pietermaritzburg, then inland to the Midlands, thinking maybe a nice hotel will be okay. Not all hotels are haunted, surely. The Nottingham Road Hotel looks charming. All 19th century colonial architecture and Midlands meander cozy. You book a room, and the receptionist's smile is just a touch too knowing when she hands you the key to room 10. Charlotte takes good care of our guests, she says. Charlotte, the barmaid who died under mysterious circumstances, the helpful ghost who tidies rooms, folds scattered clothing, arranges items neatly. She's maternal, caring, making sure visitors are comfortable. Your room is indeed spotless, perhaps too spotless, like it's being maintained by someone far more particular than regular hotel staff. You toss your jacket on a chair, drop your bag on the floor, scatter some toiletries on the bathroom counter, and head down for dinner. When you return an hour later, everything has been organized. Your jacket is folded precisely on the chair. Your bag is zipped and placed neatly in the corner. Your toy lettries are arranged by size on the counter. The bed sheets are pulled so taut you could bounce a coin off them. You didn't hear anyone enter. The door was locked. That night you feel it. Someone tucking the blankets around you, smoothing them down gently. The creak of floorboards under Victorian-era footsteps. The rustle of fabric. A gentle, motherly presence that should be comforting but isn't quite, because you know the person caring for you died decades ago and never left. Thank you, Charlotte, you whisper to the darkness, because it seems rude not to acknowledge her. A door down the hall opens and closes softly as if in response. By morning, you're surprisingly rested, your clothes somehow cleaner than they were, and you head north toward Gauteng with a strange mix of gratitude and unease. Charlotte might be the nicest ghost you've encountered on this trip, which is both touching and deeply sad. Johannesburg rises from the high veld like a concrete fever. Dream. All skyscrapers and highways, and the kind of urban energy that makes you think, surely ghosts can't compete with this level of modernity. But Johannesburg's history is recent enough to still hurt. Apartheid, mining disasters, industrialization that chewed up lives and spit out profit. You find yourself on the East Rand in Kempton Park, staring at an abandoned hospital. You're not sure why you're here. Morbid curiosity, a death wish, a complete inability to make good decisions. Probably all three. The building is a corpse. Windows broken like missing teeth, and graffiti covering walls that once housed the sick and dying. Urban explorers warn about this place. Ghost hunters have documented terrifying encounters. You've seen the footage, shadows moving, children's laughter where no children should be, the sound of gurneys rolling down empty hallways. You're not going inside. You have that much sense left. But you hear it anyway. From inside the dark building, floating through broken windows, children laughing, playing, running. The sound is pure joy, untouched by the decay around it. And it's somehow more unsettling than screaming would be. Why are ghost children laughing? What do they know that you don't? Are they playing, or is laughter all they remember how to do? Forever, children stuck in a building that was supposed to heal them. Small handprints appear on a dusty window, too high for small children to reach unless they're floating. A face peers out, pale, indistinct, and then pulls back into darkness. You're getting back in your car when you smell it. Disinfectant and decay, medical equipment and old suffering. The particular scent of a hospital long abandoned but not forgotten. Your skin is crawling, your hair standing on end, and you need to leave right now. The M1 highway carries you into central Johannesburg, and you're in traffic at twilight when you see her. A woman in a white dress, standing on the shoulder, thumb raised. Your hands tighten on the wheel. You're not stopping. You're absolutely not stopping. You've learned this lesson. The woman in white is a phantom hitchhiker who appears on the M1 at night, enters vehicles, sits quietly, then vanishes. Some drivers wake up the next morning with no memory of how they got home. Others find wet footprints or handprints in their cars. She sometimes points toward an accident site before disappearing. A warning or a memory endlessly repeating. You drive past without slowing, meeting her eyes in the mirror for just a second. They're hollow, sad, and utterly empty of life. She watches you go without reacting, and somehow that's worse than if she'd chased you. Constitution Hill rises ahead, the old Johannesburg fort now converted to a museum and constitutional court. You visit during the day, you're not completely stupid, but even in daylight, the place feels heavy. Thousands of people were imprisoned, tortured, and died within these walls during apartheid and colonial rule. That suffering doesn't just disappear. It soaks into stone, settles into shadows, lingers in the air like smoke. You walk through cell blocks, and you hear them. Whispers in multiple languages, Afrikaans and Zulu and Xhosa and English, all overlapping, saying things you can't quite make out. Phantom footsteps echo in adjacent corridors. You turn a corner and see, just for a second, a figure in a striped prison uniform before it vanishes. The cold hits you suddenly. A temperature drop that makes no sense given the warm day outside. The air feels heavy with injustice, with suffering that hasn't been resolved, with stories that haven't been fully told. You're experiencing history here, the kind that doesn't stay politely in the past, but insists on being felt, remembered, acknowledged. It's not quite the same as the other hauntings. This feels less like ghosts trying to scare you and more like echoes demanding to be heard. You leave feeling shaken in a different way, and you drive north out of Johannesburg, heading toward Limpopo as the sun sets. You need sacred spaces, you think. Not haunted spaces, but holy ones. Surely those are different. Narrator, voice dripping with sarcasm. They were not different. You've entered Limpopo, land of ancient myths and sacred sites, where the Vavenda and other peoples have lived and told stories for thousands of years. The landscape grows more mountainous, more mystical, and you're heading toward Lake Fundudzi, which the guidebooks call one of South Africa's most sacred locations. The guidebooks, you'll notice, also say Do not disturb the water in about 17 different ways, which should be your first clue. Lake Fundudzi sits in a mountainous valley, surrounded by the Thathavando forest, and even from a distance it looks different than other lakes. The water is too still, too dark, and it has a presence about it like it's aware of you approaching. The Vavenda people believe this lake is enchanted, home to ancestral spirits, guarded by a massive python and a white crocodile. The fullness and color of the lake indicate the ancestors' mood. Today the water is low and murky. The ancestors are not happy. You're keeping a respectful distance. You finally learned something. But you can feel the lake's power from here. The mist rises like spirits taking form. The surface ripples without wind, as if something enormous just moved beneath it. The smell of sacred herbs from past ceremonies hangs in the air, mixing with the scent of water and earth and something else, something older than words. The silence is profound, alive, pressing against your eardrums. You have the distinct sensation of being watched by ancient, inhuman eyes. Eyes that are evaluating whether you've shown proper respect. Eyes that belong to something that could pull you under in an instant if it chose. A ripple moves across the lake, getting larger, heading toward shore, toward you. You see the suggestion of scales, massive and gleaming darkly. The water bulges upward, and you're not waiting to see what emerges. You back away, keeping your eyes downcast in respect, and you don't stop until you're well clear of the lake's edge. Behind you, you hear a splash, something large entering or leaving the water. You don't turn around to look. The Thathavando forest surrounds you now, dense and watchful, and the locals have told you this forest is avoided for good reason. It's home to Ndadzi, the thunder and lightning bird, a creature so powerful and fearsome that few Venda people dare enter. Ndadzi flies on the wings of thunder, eyes flashing with lightning, rain falling from its beak. When it drops an egg at the foot of a tree, that tree is struck by lightning and burns. The forest is also guarded by a mythical white lion, working with Ndadzi to protect sacred ground. The sky is darkening rapidly, storm clouds boiling overhead with unnatural speed. Thunder rumbles, shaking your chest. Lightning cracks across the sky, and in that flash, you see something massive, with wings spread wide, perched in a distant tree. Eyes that glow like lightning bolts turn toward you. The smell of ozone fills the air. Your hair stands on end, literally electrically, and you know with absolute certainty that you need to leave this forest immediately. Trees around you bear scorch marks from lightning strikes. The wind picks up, carrying a cry that sounds like tearing metal, and rain begins to fall like bullets. You run. Not bravely, not gracefully, but fast, stumbling over roots and rocks, your breath burning in your lungs. Lightning strikes a tree directly behind you, and you hear it explode in flames. The thunder is so loud you can't hear your own thoughts. Feathers the size of your forearm lie scattered on the ground, and they crackle with residual electricity. You burst from the forest and keep running until you reach your car, and you drive away from Lake Fundudzi and Thathavando forest as fast as legally possible. Okay, slightly faster than legal. You've angered something ancient by being there during a storm, and you're profoundly grateful you managed to leave intact. The drive east toward Mpumalanga is quiet, pastoral even, and you're beginning to relax. Maybe the worst is behind you. Maybe you've paid your supernatural dues for this trip. Maybe you arrive at Adam's Calendar near Barberton, and you realize you're far from done. This circular stone structure is estimated to be 75,000 years old, possibly older. It perfectly aligns with star signs, constellations, solstices, equinoxes, the Great Pyramid of Giza, and the Great Zimbabwe ruins. The question that nobody can answer satisfactorily: how did people 75,000 years ago possess this level of astronomical knowledge? Were they far more advanced than we believe? Were they aided by extraterrestrial visitors? Were they inheritors of an even older, lost civilization? The stones don't offer answers, but they hum with energy you can feel in your bones. You place your hand on one of the ancient stones and feel vibration, subtle but unmistakable. Your watch is running fast, or is it slow? You check your phone. It stopped entirely, frozen at the exact moment you touch the stone. The stars overhead, they seem closer than they should be, brighter. And the shadows on the ground don't quite match the angle of moonlight. You feel observed, but not by anything living in the traditional sense. Observed by the sight itself, by the intelligence that created it, by the knowledge encoded in stone that you can't begin to understand. You're standing in a place between worlds, where time behaves differently, where ancient wisdom still hums through rock and earth. You remove your hand quickly, and your watch starts again. Your phone flickers back to life. You've been here for what felt like 5 minutes, but 2 hours have passed. The ground beneath your feet vibrates subtly, continuously, as if the earth itself has a heartbeat here. You spend the night in nearby Pilgrim's Rest, an old gold rush town that's now a living museum. The Royal Hotel was built in 1894, and you're shown to a room that's all Victorian charm and creaking floorboards. The owner mentions casually that the place is haunted by a barber, a barmaid, and various miners. Nothing to worry about, she assures you. They're harmless. You're too tired to care anymore. You've faced sea serpents and lightning birds and creatures under beds. A few ghost miners don't seem so bad in comparison. You're proven wrong around midnight when you hear it. The sound of mining equipment echoing through the walls. Picks striking rock in a steady rhythm that would drive someone slowly insane. Footsteps on wooden floorboards. Many footsteps. Heavy boots worn by men who spent their lives underground. The smell hits you next. Dust and sweat and whiskey and tobacco. The particular scent of rough men doing hard labor in pursuit of gold. Downstairs in the pub, you hear laughter and the clink of glasses. You creep to the door, peer out into the hallway, and see a figure at the far end. A man covered in dust, pickaxe over his shoulder, walking through the wall as if it isn't there. He doesn't acknowledge you. He's stuck in his own loop, heading to or from the diggings forever. In the barber shop next door, you hear the snip, snip, snip of scissors, the scrape of a straight razor being stropped, the murmur of conversation between barber and client. The room is empty. It's been empty for over a century. But the sounds continue, echoing from when this was a living, bustling gold rush town full of men seeking fortune. You actually managed to sleep a little, lulled by the familiar sounds of a town that no longer exists. It's almost comforting in a weird way. These ghosts aren't malevolent, just persistent, continuing their routines long after their reasons for doing so have vanished. Morning brings sunshine and the smell of coffee, and you head north back toward Limpopo, then west, across to the Northern Cape. You're entering the Karoo proper now, that vast semi-desert region where The landscape stretches empty for kilometers, and the sky is bigger than anything has a right to be. You pass through ghost towns, Puts Underwater, Dragender, once thriving railway communities, now reduced to crumbling ruins. You stop in one of these ghost towns midday, stepping out into the profound silence. It's not peaceful. It's expectant, like the town is holding its breath, waiting for something. Buildings sag, their walls decorated with peeling paint and broken dreams. Railway tracks disappear into the horizon, rusted and unused. You walk down what was once the main street, and you hear it. Laughter. Music. The clinking of glasses. A party in full swing, except there's no one here. No one living anyway. The sounds are coming from a building that's missing half its roof, from a pub that served its last drink decades ago. Look, you peer through a broken window, and for just a second, you see them. Figures dancing, translucent and flickering like old film. Men and women dressed in period clothing, celebrating something, caught in a moment of joy that they're still experiencing even though their bodies turned to dust long ago. Then you blink, and there's only an empty room with a collapsed ceiling and a floor covered in debris. The smell of coal smoke and cooking fires drifts on the wind, though there are no fires anywhere. You hear a train whistle in the distance, clear and insistent. But when you look at the tracks, they're obviously unused, choked with weeds. The train sounds again, closer, and you feel the ground vibrating as if something heavy is approaching. You're getting back in your car when you see the lights. Headlights from another vehicle approaching down the empty road. But when they get closer, you realize the lights are wrong. Too high off the ground, moving with a swaying motion. Lanterns. Someone carrying lanterns, walking toward the ghost town. You do not wait to see who or what is carrying those lanterns. You start your car and drive, and in your rear view mirror, the lights pause at the edge of town, bobbing slightly, as if the bearer is watching you leave. The Karoo Highway stretches before you, empty and hypnotic, and the sun is setting in spectacular fashion, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that look too vivid to be real. You're driving through absolute wilderness now, passing the occasional farm hours apart, seeing no other vehicles. The isolation is profound. If something happened to you out here, broke down, had an accident, encountered something strange, it would be hours before anyone found you. This is probably why you see him. The mad wagon driver appears on the road ahead, his transport wagon drawn by 14 wide-eyed mules. You slam on the brakes, skidding to a stop, because the wagon is solid-looking, real, blocking the entire road. The driver's face is twisted in anguish or madness or both, and his eyes are wild. The mules are frothing, terrified, their eyes rolling white. "Where are you going?" you call out, though every instinct screams at you to stay silent. The driver stands in his wagon, raises his arms to the darkening sky, and screams, "To hell! To hell!" The mules rear, the wagon wheels spin, and then they're gone. Not driving away, just gone, vanished as if they never existed. Dust settles where they stood. The road is empty. Your hands are cramping on the steering wheel, and you realize you're not breathing properly, taking short, panicked gasps. You drive on slowly, and a few kilometers later, you pass a dry riverbed. A light appears there, swift moving, sweeping back and forth along the river course, like someone searching frantically for something. The light is angry, purposeful, and stories say it's the ghost of a woman murdered by her husband in that riverbed. forever searching for him to exact revenge. You don't stop. You barely slow down. The light turns towards your vehicle as if sensing you, and for a moment it paces your car, keeping up easily despite you accelerating. Then it falls away, returning to its eternal search. By the time you reach Beaufort West, you're exhausted beyond words. You find a small B&B, and the owner, an older Afrikaans woman, takes one look at you and nods knowingly. "You've seen the Karoo ghosts," she says. "It's not a question." You nod mutely. "Yeah," she sighs. "The Karoo is old and lonely. Things linger here, but you're safe in town, mostly." She shows you to a room that's blessedly normal. No raised beds, no card-shuffling ghosts. Just a regular room in a regular building. You collapse into bed fully clothed and sleep without dreaming, which is possibly the greatest blessing of the entire journey. Morning comes softly, the harsh Karoo sun, gentled by thin curtains. You're stiff, sore, and questioning every decision that led you to this point. The owner serves you breakfast, eggs and toast and coffee so strong it could wake the dead, which feels like an unfortunate phrase given the circumstances. And you ask her about the region. "Are there any places that aren't haunted?" you ask, half joking. She considers this seriously. "The dams," she says finally. "Though you mustn't go in the water. Because of the mermaids." "Of course, the mermaids. Why wouldn't there be mermaids in the arid Karoo?" She explains. Various dams and water holes in the Karoo are inhabited by beautiful mermaids with pale skin, long black hair, and crimson eyes. Unlike fairy tale mermaids, these creatures are malevolent. They appear to men as whatever their heart desires most. A lost love, a beautiful woman, wealth, power, and lure them into the water to drown. Numerous unmarked graves near dams testify to their victims. "My uncle," she says quietly, "went to check the cattle at Buffelsjag Dam one evening. They found him 3 days later face down in the shallows. He was a good swimmer, knew that water his whole life, but he went in and couldn't come back out." You add, "Stay away from Karoo water," to your growing list of safety rules that you should have known before starting this trip. Right up there with don't pick up hitchhikers and don't enter sacred forests during storms. Your journey is winding down now. A slow release of tension as you head back west and south, making a wide circle toward Cape Town and hopefully a flight home to somewhere less supernaturally active. The landscape shifts gradually, the Karoo giving way to mountain passes and valleys. You drive over Suiweeksport Pass, a mountain road built in the 1800s by convicts, 30 of whom died when their shelter collapsed during a snowstorm. The pass is beautiful in that stark, dangerous way of mountain roads, with sheer drops and incredible views. You're taking it slowly, carefully when you see him. A man runs into the road waving his arms frantically. He's dressed oddly, old-fashioned clothing, and his face is twisted in fear or desperation. You slam on the brakes. Again, this trip is really testing your reflexes, and by the time you've stopped, he's gone. Just vanished. No one on the road, no one in the rocks nearby. The toll keeper ghost, still trying to collect passage fees or warn travelers of danger, has been flagging down vehicles on this pass for over a century. You sit there, heart pounding, then continue driving very, very carefully. Around one blind corner, you discover a rock fall blocking half the road, recent, judging by the fresh debris. If you'd been going faster, hadn't been extra cautious after the ghost's warning, you might have hit it at speed. Was he warning you? Or was that just coincidence? You're not sure, but you nod to the empty air as you pass. A small gesture of thanks to a long-dead toll keeper still trying to do his job. The final leg of your journey takes you through the Swartberg Pass, another engineering marvel built by convict labor at terrible cost. The temperature drops suddenly in one section, the spot where 30 workers died in that snowstorm. Your breath comes out in visible puffs, despite it being a warm day. You hear something on the wind, men crying out in Afrikaans, calls for help that are over a century too late to answer. Shadows move in the rocks, taking the shapes of men huddled together against cold that killed them. You feel an oppressive sensation of being watched by many eyes, and you understand that this pass is a mass grave, a memorial in stone to suffering and death. The convicts who built it never left. They're still here, still enduring that final, terrible night. You drive through quickly, but respectfully, and the temperature normalizes as you leave that section behind. The weight lifts from your chest. The shadows return to being just shadows. By evening, you can see the lights of civilization ahead, the glow of Cape Town spreading across the landscape like a promise of safety and normalcy. You're nearly there, nearly home, nearly done with this journey through South Africa's supernatural geography, but you make one final stop. Greenpoint Lighthouse stands on the Sea Point Promenade, Cape Town's oldest functioning lighthouse, built in 1824. The one-legged lighthouse keeper who served faithfully despite his disability died in the tower, and his voice still echoes up the spiral staircase at night, calling out warnings. You're walking the promenade at twilight. You've come this far, might as well complete the circuit. When you hear it, the distinctive pattern of footsteps. Step thump, step thump, step thump. The sound of someone with a wooden leg climbing stairs, even though the lighthouse is closed and empty. Then a voice, faint but clear, calling out warnings in Afrikaans and English, the language of navigation and safety, trying to guide ships that are no longer in danger. The lamp of the lighthouse sweeps across the water, and you watch it pulse in steady rhythm. The sound of footsteps continues, that uneven step thump pattern, and you can almost see him, a dedicated keeper climbing his stairs, tending his light, still trying to save lives even though his own ended long ago. It's not frightening, this ghost, it's poignant. Sad in the way that devotion outlasting death is sad. He's protecting people who don't know they need protecting, warning ships that have GPS and radar and every modern navigation tool. But still, he climbs his stairs, tends his light, calls his warnings into the night. You sit on a bench and watch the lighthouse for a while, the sea breeze cooling your face, the city humming gently behind you. After everything you've experienced, the terrors and wonders, the malevolent spirits and benign hauntings, the ancient powers and recent tragedies, there's something almost comforting about the lighthouse keeper. A ghost with a purpose, a spirit still serving. The stars are coming out now, bright against the darkening sky. The ocean breathes against the shore, in and out, eternal and patient. You're tired, bone-deep, exhausted, but also filled with a strange sense of accomplishment. You've traveled through South Africa's haunted geography and survived. You've encountered legends that people tell in whispers, spirits that won't rest, creatures that shouldn't exist, and you've learned something important. The line between the living world and whatever lies beyond is thinner than you ever imagined. It's not a wall, but a veil, gossamer and permeable, and in certain places, at certain times, it becomes transparent enough to see through. South Africa is full of those places. The old castle where suffering soaked into stone, the sacred lakes where serpents guard ancestors, the lonely roads where the dead still seek rides home. You'll return to your normal life tomorrow, to electric lights and rational explanations, and the comfort, able denial of anything supernatural. You'll tell people about your trip, about the beautiful landscapes and rich history, and you'll leave out the parts about ghosts and creatures and spirits. Because who would believe you? Who would understand that you heard children laughing in an abandoned hospital, that you smelled apple blossoms from a hitchhiker who died in 1968, that you felt the weight of a Tokoloshi's presence pressing down in the night? But you'll know. You'll remember. And late at night, when the world is quiet and the boundaries grow thin, you'll wonder what's moving just beyond the edge of your vision. You'll hear a floorboard creak and think of Victorian nurses shuffling cards. You'll see mist rolling in and remember a ship with spectral crew. You'll smell something sweet and think of mermaids and pink-haired bathroom monsters and apple blossom ghosts. The lighthouse beam sweeps across the water, steady and sure, guided by a hand that's been dust for nearly 2 centuries. Step thump, step thump. The keeper climbs his stairs again, faithful to his duty, eternal in his purpose. You stand slowly, your bones protesting, and you walk back toward the city lights. Behind you, the ocean whispers secrets to the shore, the same secrets it's been telling for millennia. The wind carries voices that might be memory or might be something more. The stars watch with the patience of ancient things that have seen empires rise and fall, seen the living become the dead, become legends, become ghosts. Tomorrow you'll fly away from this beautiful haunted land, but a part of you will always remain here, walking those supernatural roads, listening to those whispered warnings, respecting those sacred spaces. You've touched the other side, and it's left fingerprints on your soul, small and permanent, like the handprints a Tokoloshi leaves on dusty windows. Sleep well, traveler. You've earned your rest, and when you wake, the world will seem brighter, more solid, more reliably real. The ghosts will fade into the rational light of day, becoming stories again, legends, things that happen to other people in other places. But on quiet nights, when the wind blows just right and the shadows fall just so, you'll remember, you'll know, and you'll check that your bed is raised on bricks just in case, sweet dreams.